consulting role. We call it a strategist, a consultant, an operative. There's so many names for it. But like I said earlier, usually when someone doesn't know what to call themselves in politics, they just slap the word consultant on it and charge exorbitant fees. I do not. But the entire consulting world is just pure evil, and it's where good politicians get lost, is with their consultants.
So how many consultants would you say like one candidate has that's running for governor or senator or something?
Wow.
A handful or just one?
No, a handful. I mean, for some of the bigger positions like a governor of a state or a senator, you might have a dozen or so consultants. I mean,
wow. What happens when they disagree?
Oh, boy.
I think you should take this stance. Well, I think you should take this stance. What's a governor to do?
Well, in an ideal world, the politician has the final say, but so many times the consultants get their power grip over these politicians, and they all kind of, it's all the good old boys club, and if you're not in it, you're not in it, right? And so the firm that I work for is a very young firm. We're very new on the scene, and we sometimes find ourselves not part of the good old boy club because we're very America first. We're very Trump oriented in that wing of the party, and there's so many people. I don't have to tell you all this, but there's so many Republicans that just really want to see that Trump wing of the party die, and the more that the more they want it to die, the stronger we get.
Yeah, we are here to stay.
When you talking about the consultant group, do they get bought off?
All the
is
time.
Is that a big thing where you don't go you know that the candidate is buffered by these people that are making decisions?
Well, they either get bought off or they buy off politicians, and a lot of times too, you have consultants do their clients a disservice. So you have races where it's very obvious you're not going to win, but the consultants will bleed your campaign dry, especially if you're self-funding. I'm not going to mention any campaigns here in Arizona, but there's quite a few that have these groups behind them that are just bleeding them dry of all their money. Because you got to think about it this way: as long as they're in the race, then they continue to pay. And so, why would a consultant say, you know what? There's no pathway to victory. Why don't you drop out and endorse this person?
Right.
Because they're out of their,
So it's just self. It's all self.
And then there's the favor thing. This is probably the whole swamp. Like there's the favors. You do someone a favor, they owe you one. Now you've got favors being traded all over, whether the person believes in what they're endorsing or not. You owe me one. Well, I got to sign that bill.
And
I owe
it's
you
become, especially in the House, because you got to think about it like this: every 2 years they have to run for re-election. So as soon as they're done with their election, the next one pretty much starts back up. So you've got an entire Congress that we think, we're here in Arizona or anywhere in the country, you think that you send your representatives to Washington, D.C. to legislate and to craft policy. 75-80% of what they do is just raise money. They just their job is to get on the phone and raise money for their campaign and for their caucuses too.
2 years. We know how fast that flies by. Imagine that half of that is spent trying to make sure you're getting reelected the next time.
And you're never. So that is why they're never working for the people. They're working to please the bank. Their bank. And this is why Trump was so hated. He had his own bank. He didn't need everyone else's, and that's what they could not stand, was they could not own him. And, I always say, people bag on me for the Trump thing. He was divisive. He's amoral. He doesn't have fruit of the Spirit. He doesn't have I'm like, I wasn't hiring him to be my Jesus. I wasn't hiring him to be my Savior. I was hiring him to run the country like the businessman that he is, and he did a great job with in my faith. He held to the standards of my faith better than any other candidate. So this is where I think they try to take us down to as right wing or conservative is we have this savior complex that everybody that we're supporting or backing or endorsing is our savior.
Right.
No. It's actually the farthest from the truth.
Employees.
Yeah,
they're working for us, and I feel like they're the most committed to work for us. And I just had this conversation with somebody, pretty powerful person actually, who is like, "How could you be a Trumper? How?" And I'm like, because this is the deal. If I was a football player, I would want my coach looking out for my team. I would want my coach strategizing for my team. I don't want my coach in the locker room making deals with the other coach from the other team.
What a novel idea.
Is this really that groundbreaking, you guys?
No.
I just don't get it.
This whole show should be pointless.
I know, really. We should not have... It should.
Yeah, what a novel idea. Politicians working for the people that elected them.
Did you consult for Trump? Tell the truth.
I would.
Gosh,
It'd
could
be
you
a
imagine?
dream.
I know.
But, well,
Trump, if you're out there
he
listening
doesn't
to the She's
seem-
So Right show.
I mean, he's who's president of the United States. Of course, he's surrounded by consultants. But I mean, if anyone with eyes can see, he kind of just
rogue.
goes to the beat of his own drum.
But do you think at the end there that he was getting bad information, that he was being sabotaged?
I think he was being sabotaged from this moment he came down the golden escalator.
But I mean, by his own
his
party.
people.
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh,
I think a
Pence
Pence
in the election." And
Well, yeah.
What's your thought?
ooh, let's
Come
go.
on.
Full conspiracy theory, Duncan. Come on.
Conspiracy. Okay. Well, Mike Pence, he just kind of there at the end let us all down. There at the end, it was just a whirlwind of craziness. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question.
I don't either. I feel like it's so deep, no one really knows the truth anymore. That's what I used to say before I was into politics. I used to say, I don't talk politics because there's so much out there. You can't possibly absorb it all enough to be actually educated to make a legit argument. And I still feel like when it comes to everything, January 6th and who did what, do we know everything? I still think no one's ever going to know everything.
Well, there's plenty of footage that can be released.
Well,
but,
that we know. There's no insurrect. We know that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, Megan. I was on Megyn Kelly podcast and she said Mike Pence could not overturn that. Did you know that? Like he doesn't have the authority. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'll look for it myself. And it's like, where am I going to find that information?
Colton, is that true? He couldn't have done it?
I have no idea.
Really?
I think that states could have not certified.
That should have.
They could have not certified, just like Arizona could have not certified the election. So
interesting.
When we get back, let's
Politicians
talk
with a
more
backbone.
about Deep Swamp in D.C.
Yeah.
Just so that I never move there. All right, guys, we'll be right back with the She's So Right show with Colton Duncan.
Freedom Fighters, you're back with the She's So Right show with Brandy Barclay, Lindsey Graham, and political consultant here in Arizona, Colton Duncan. That's kind of a tongue twister, or is that just me?
No, I think it's just you.
It's the
two first names too.
We tried to record one of our ads, and she couldn't say like my pillow something.
Oh, stop it!
And I was like, you know what? Let's switch sections. I'll handle that. And it was like smooth as sailing. Like I don't know. There's something about.
Oh,
say Colton Duncan.
Colton Duncan. I can't do the
It's a very white name too, especially. And I'm from Texas. So
it's a very Texas.
It's Colton Duncan.
It's a very Texas white political consultant name.
Does it sound like a political consultant?
Yeah. Colton's handling my books today.
Duncan
how do I vote
Donuts.
on this? Colton Duncan. Maybe a future president.
Oh my gosh,
Mr.
no.
President. President Duncan.
That's the thing that I will always remain on the.
It's non-negotiable. You're never going to run for president?
I'm never going to run for office.
Really?
No, I have no interest in running for office.
Why?
be your own
I want to
consultant.
know
You could save
why.
the big
This is
bucks.
really interesting.
It's not. I'm better advising people. I'm better giving advice. I think. I just.
You don't want to play that game kind of thing?
I don't want to do it. I don't want people digging into my life. I don't want to. I really, and I actually,
you're on the radio.
I really don't like. I'm not a crazy big policy guy either. I don't think I'd be good at it, and just in terms of crafting policy and a lot of the stuff. Like I'm a big messaging guy, and I can sell policy, but trying to craft it and legislate, I have no business being a legislator.
So it's almost like you're a great marketer.
Yeah,
You're almost like a
and
marketing.
that's a lot of the consulting world too. And like
Yeah.
I said, there's different aspects of fundraising consultants and media consultants, which politicians need. But it's a double-edged sword. Like I said, so many of them are just evil.
How did you get in? I know we're going to talk about D.C. real fast, but I wanted to say, when you're in D.C. and you're seeing what you're seeing, did you ever want to just get away from the whole thing?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I moved there for work, and I tried to convince myself that I liked it and that I was fitting in, but I just didn't fit in there. The Republicans there, I mean, certainly weren't Trump Republicans. It just, everything in D.C. is very transactional. And this is something I had to learn the hard way. Uprooted my life from Arizona, actually, moved all the way to D.C., signed a lease, and a couple months in, I'm just like,
what have I done?
Oh my gosh. Because you don't have normal friendships, right? You don't have just grabbing a bite to eat. It's when you sit down for a drink. Who do you work for? What do you do?
Oh.
Yeah. How can you help me? It's all transactional.
Interesting.
And so people just
That'd
kind
be
of
exhausting.
like, yeah, it's exhausting, and people just want to, they think that when they sit down that they can pull something, extract something from you. I mean, everyone's listening to everything. It's evil. It's like we watch shows like Scandal and House of Cards.
Yeah.
It really. I mean, I never really got very deep into any of it. But it really does feel that way.
So once they have a cocktail with you and they decide you are useless to them, is it like, all right?
Oh, I'm not useless to anyone.
Oh!
No, it's like.
I mean, you guys, Colton brought us Christmas gifts, and it's a calendar, and every picture in the calendar is of himself. So we're not dealing with somebody who doesn't value.
There's only been 30 printed, so these are one of a kind. This is going in my safe.
Collector's items.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're little desk calendars, and each month has a different picture.
My favorite is September. Actually,
funny.
it's a hunting picture.
No, it's just DC sucked. It was awful.
Swampy swamp.
Yeah, you try to. Friendship really isn't a thing there. I know that sounds weird, but it's like, it's all
everything's a partnership.
Everyone's trying to advance their career, which there's nothing wrong with advancing your career, but.
Yeah,
but here, do you feel that way here in a different way? I mean, you're on Kari Lake's campaign. You don't feel any of that going on right now?
No, I think it's great here. I love Arizona. I actually like it a lot more than when I used to live here. The people are great. The conservatives are great. Everyone in the movement, I mean, it's night and day. It really is. I have no complaints about. I mean, there's a Beltway consultant class here too that kind of sucks, but I've largely ignored them.
Well, I would think that there's good and bad people on each side, right? And Washington, D.C. to me seems like you took all of the bad, because if you want to be anybody in politics, you got to go to D.C., right? Like that's probably why you went. And you took all of the bad people that's all they want is to manipulate the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
you put them all in one city. It's like, of course that's going to be horrible.
That's interesting.
Very good way to put it.
Power hungry.
Yeah.
If you put that many power hungry people in one place, what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh. It gives me goosebumps.
Huh?
The energy's just off too.
Yeah. And so they're here. They're here in Arizona. They're here in California, but they're spread out, and they're probably less obvious because we surround ourselves by conservatives and like-minded people. And
When you think of the two most influential places being D.C. and Hollywood, they both run on that economy of working your way to the top.
Mm-hmm.
When I was young, I was trying to be an actress, and real fast I figured it out and said, this isn't for me. Anyway, you guys are listening to the She's So Right show. We'll be right back with political consultant Colton Duncan. I said it.
Calendar star.
Woo! Hey, freedom fighters, you're listening to the She's So Right show with Brandy Barclay, Lindsey Graham, and political consultant Colton Duncan.
She comes in hot now. Have you guys noticed that? The music starts and she's like, freedom fighters.
Love it.
Hey.
We actually listen to our podcast and we're like, gosh, there's a lot of music in this.
I know.
And we have plenty to say. So we're like,
yeah, let's get to it. So my question for you is, do you, through Arsenal consulting, do you get to choose which candidates you support, or is it like something that they give you and you got to run with it?
No, absolutely. We only work with conservative America First candidates. That's kind of our.
There's 3 of them.
That's our.
Well, Trump already got elected, so
that's our vein, right? That's kind of where we found the bread and butter, and where we found where we can really make a difference. And it's a lot of unconventional campaign styles, unconventional campaign ads, and actually something cool. If anytime in a primary, if President Trump endorses someone against us, we will drop that client.
interesting.
What? Really?
Wow.
Why?
Just based off of, if the president's going to throw their support behind someone, why would we work against that?
Wow. So do you jump ship and immediately try to recruit that other candidate?
No. We just, you have go back to the contract and see